So I recently dropped out of university to become a Minecraft YouTuber, and usually, conventionally, when YouTubers make the decision to drop out of university and make YouTube videos, they do so. Wow, really, lag killed me. They do so knowing that they have a large enough community that is stable enough that they know it can support them, which evidently is not what I've done because this is the first video on my channel. But I I went to university to follow a passion that died away because they didn't meet my standards. There were things that I was really looking forward to learning, things that I wanted to do that didn't happen. I went to this university because a lecture that I had attended when we were visiting in high school for an excursion completely changed the way that I thought about genre. And I was so intrigued by this. I wanted to learn more. I was really hoping that we would cover genre while I was there, but I think you have to get up to third year to discuss that, which is really disappointing because I was discussing this theory, this concept that I had been introduced to by that lecture about genre in my first 2 semesters. Well, my first semester and a half, I suppose, of university, because that's what interested me, and I was applying that concept to everything. The concept itself was that we recognize genres based off of the conventions of those genres, right? Like, you know a horror movie is going to be a horror movie because the music in the background drops away. There's lots of diegetic sounds, which are sounds that the people in the scene can hear as opposed to sounds that only the audience can hear. So you hear the creaky floorboards and the footsteps, and you know that it's going to be a horror thing because you know that that's what is conventional for that genre. And this can be applied to so many things. And I kept pointing out things in classes like, well, we know when it comes to semiotics, we know that roses represent romance, but that means that when we see roses, we know it's going to be a romance genre. And that when you make a new convention within a work, the audience expects it to be repeated later. This is just, it's a really, really interesting concept to me, and I was disappointed that we didn't really get to talk about it. But on top of them not covering what I had hoped they would, considering it was, the reason I decided to go to this university in the first place, these jumps are either really easy or really hard depending on the day. Looks like it's a hard day. I had been hoping to push myself, to challenge myself, and to learn new skills. Creative writing had been my hobby before I decided to do it as a unit. And I was really wanting to challenge myself, to play around with genre. I typically write fantasy fiction. I wanted to practice with sort of gothic horror, maybe some horror thriller, things that I wasn't really used to. And we didn't get to. We never touched on genre. I wanted to improve on plot because I'm really bad at plot. I'm all right at setting, but I'm not so good at having a continuous plot that makes sense and intrigues audiences into wanting to find out what happens. So I wanted to practice more with that. I got lost for a second. And I wanted to practice with different forms of writing. I have a lot of practice with short forms of writing and with flash fiction, but I don't have practice when it comes to longer forms of writing. I was really hoping that I'd be able to get to do that in university, but unfortunately, we didn't really practice that. We didn't really cover it. We talked about short story, we talked about flash fiction. We did one or two new forms of short story, but it wasn't anything new. And that was really disappointing to me. I didn't get to challenge myself or learn any of the new skills that I had been looking forward to. It felt like nothing we were really learning was applying to my work. The things that we were learning in class either had bad examples that really it felt like the teachers weren't providing textual evidence from the texts that we had to study every week to support the claims they were making about the subject. So like they would talk about the ethics of representation, but then the texts that they showed us didn't have examples of good representation. So they weren't setting a good example for the class. And, you know, in an English class, it's really important to provide textual evidence in everything you do. It's really annoying that there's not a checkpoint. So I was getting frustrated that there wasn't enough textual evidence, or that the things that felt like they were relevant to our course were covered so slowly. We talked about semiotics in one of my first weeks of university. It was, I think, about 3 or 4 weeks into first semester. Semiotics are signs and symbols, so like the rose thing meaning romance that I mentioned before, but you could also say that apples mean education. You could say that the fire extinguisher means, like the little fire extinguisher sign that you keep next to fire extinguishers is literally a sign of fire extinguishers. The exit signs with the little green running men are signs, and they symbolize something. So semiotics is how to depict something, basically. And this was a concept that we had covered in high school in my design class. And we covered it in about 20 minutes in my design class, and then went over it once to make sure everybody knew what we were talking about. And we basically never had to cover it again. It was one game of Pictionary that we played with everyone going on tangents and us all helping connect things together, and my teacher linking things back so that we all knew what was going on. And in university, the same thing in a different setting took us a few weeks to get. Why am I not jumping? Okay, there we go. It took us a few weeks, and it felt like it was applicable to less. In university, I didn't really apply those concepts of semiotics to anything else. The concepts that I applied were the ones that I learned in high school. In high school, after learning semiotics in my design class, I used them in art, I used them in English, I might have even used them in math, although it's sort of unlikely. But I was really disappointed that we were taking longer to learn things that felt less relevant to what we were doing. And overall, my passion for creative writing was fading. I was disappointed by what we were learning. I had been hoping for more, for better. And the passion for what I came to university for, because I wanted to learn so much, was fading. Before going to university, I had been writing almost every day. After going to university, I pretty much didn't write unless I had an assignment, and even then, I only wrote as much as I needed. I did like the bare minimum. So I didn't feel like it was going to be a good call to continue university when that passion that I used to have really wasn't there in that subject anymore. And what I wanted to be doing was teaching myself as opposed to formalized education, and making Minecraft videos, which I've wanted to do since I was really very young. Why can I not do this? Is this going to be easier without Sprint? Maybe. I I've been wanting to do YouTube videos since I was like 9, and I've just never really been able to, because I didn't know who I was or who I wanted to be or how I wanted to represent myself. I wasn't confident in my own identity, so I couldn't really be someone that was a presence online, if that makes sense. I wasn't confident enough to make videos because I wouldn't be satisfied with whatever it was I made, and I wasn't confident that anyone would like watching me. But I have friends who like me for me, and I know now that I am more than just I am more than just a face, you know? Like, there is a person, there is meaning behind what I do. I don't think this makes any sense, but basically what I'm saying is I've figured out who I am, and I'm ready to do this thing that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to do YouTube and have the chance to make someone smile. I don't tend to do I don't have much experience in conventional forms of a career, but I've worked in the entertainment industry for a while now, just sort of on and off as a hobby job in other things, and that's really what matters to me. I want to make people smile, I want to make people happy, and if I can do the YouTube thing and someone out there relates to me and feels less alone because they can hear themselves reflected in me, that will be enough for me. If only one person smiles once because of something I've done in a video, I'll be happy with that. So I decided that I'm gonna do this it's not even if it's not what I had expected to do. This YouTube thing is what I want to try and do, and I can always try something else. So that's what I'm doing now, and I'd really appreciate if people stuck around. I'm just gonna I don't know if there's really anything else to say. It's definitely not enough of another parkour courses worth to say. I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but it's not going to be creative writing at university anymore. I'll probably still write in my spare time. It's just the formalized education wasn't working for me for quite a number of reasons, but I'll probably touch more on those another day. For now, though, I think that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for just listening to me talk. It really means a lot to me. And if you want to stick around, I'm sure that I'll make more in the future. Thank you. Bye.